Without guns and cannons, the enemy made them for us. The 12 words sang out the hardships of the anti-Japanese war. Unable to produce guns, cannons, and qualified ammunition after firing 3 shots, my rabbit will launch a charge and fight the enemy with bayonets, using human life to fight fightZhang. Yuan traveled back to the anti-Japanese war period, without any time and space channels, and without empty exchange. The male protagonist combines modern theoretical knowledge with the actual situation of the anti-Japanese war, step by step. Help me build my own military industry system. This book leans towards industrial productionFeilu. Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. 1. Dead. I'm dying. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Zhang Yuan walked aimlessly, with occasional bang, bang sounds coming from afar. There are no tall buildings, only low earthen walls and old houses. This reminded him of the deserted village in his hometown. All sorts of eerie things made Zhang Yuan couldn't help but mutter, "Take a good night's sleep. Why did I run to a haunted place? Did I encounter an alien?" Unable to understand the situation, he just wanted to find someone to ask what exactly happened, so he walked towards the direction of the sound. But as we walked, things got worse and worse. A nauseating smell is getting stronger and stronger. Zhang Yuan frowned. At this moment, not far ahead, a fellow villager ran towards him in panic. "Hey, fellow villager." As soon as Zhang Yuan shouted out, he saw 2 people wearing yellow clothes following closely behind him, one holding a long stick in his hand. Catch up with the fellow villager in 3 or 2 steps, and kick him to the ground with 1 foot. He even poked his thigh with the stick in his hand. Then came the cries of pain from the villagers. Zhang Yuan trembled with fear. On closer inspection, this is not a stick, it is clearly a bolt rifle. There is also a bright bayonet on the gun. These 2 people in yellow clothes look like Japanese soldiers in TV dramas. Is it filming TV? Zhang Yuan muttered to himself, even looking around but couldn't find where the camera was. His actions made the 2 Japanese soldiers a bit confused. This quirky Chinese person, who didn't run when he saw them, apart from trembling with screams, surprisingly, there was no panic at all. I also started to appreciate the scenery everywhere. So the 2 Japanese soldiers quickly ended the pain of their fellow villagers, walking towards Zhang Yuan with great interest. Zhang Yuan also looked at the 2 people around 1.5 meters tall. Heart said, "It's probably difficult to find such an actor now, it's really difficult for the crew." As the 2 approached, Zhang Yuan relied on his years of film reading experience to say, "Mouth you 7 wow." This sentence surprised the 2 Japanese soldiers. This standard Tokyo accent, absolutely taught by famous teachers. Are they members of the special forces? Asterisk 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 asterisk. I saw 2 people standing at attention, muttering a series of words. Zhang Yuan was overjoyed to hear that this crew really found 2 Japanese actors, but no wonder. You think about it, it's already 2023, it's not easy to find 2 actors of such height in China. Zhang Yuan worked as an engineer all his life. I really haven't experienced making a movie before, thinking that the director didn't shout, "Card," and no one came out to stop him, so my playfulness grew stronger, reached out and patted someone's shoulder. He kept yelling and yelling non-stop, while observing the rifle in his hand. This is the 38th Great Wall, right? Seeing that the 2 were still in a state of confusion, Zhang Yuan also reached out and touched it. The touch feels cold and textured. He couldn't help but feel that the crew had money and the props were made so well. Glancing at the fellow villager lying on the ground, Zhang Yuan couldn't help but admire it. If the director doesn't shout, "Card," the performance won't end. The actor lying on the ground is really motionless. So he took a step and walked over, but it wasn't until he walked in that he felt something was wrong. This blood bag is too realistic, isn't it? This color, this smell, not right. This doesn't seem like a performance. The actor's eyelashes don't even tremble. Is acting really so explosive? Although there were murmurs in his heart, Zhang Yuan still squatted down strong and calm, feeling this and that. It looks like I'm looking for something. At the corner of my eye, I looked at 2 Japanese soldiers who were still confused. Zhang Yuan's fingers accidentally brushed over the tip of the villager's nose. Immediately, my whole body stiffened and I couldn't breathe. Uncertain, he extended his finger to his neck again. It's over. Zhang Yuan howled in his heart, this is a murder case. I came here in a daze and even encountered a murder case. And the two murderers are standing behind them. My legs started to tremble unconsciously. At this moment, the Japanese soldiers said another sentence. How can Zhang Yuan understand Japanese, apart from the common phrases learned from the teachers? I can't understand anything else at all. Seeing Zhang Yuan's delayed response, the two also noticed a problem, quickly raising the gun and aiming at him. What are you still shouting in your mouth? Looking back at this scene, he was so scared that he sat down on the ground. Seeing the two slowly walking towards each other, Zhang Yuan's heart was in turmoil. I deeply regret that I only focused on watching the picture, not studying a few Japanese sentences well. Looking at the approaching bayonet, Zhang Yuan became anxious and said, you're just making a movie, don't you need to do this? Don't make a fuss, the director, come out quickly. Two big brothers, I didn't see your faces clearly either. Let me go, I won't call the police. Zhang Yuan, who panicked and retreated, seeing a satisfied smile on the corners of their mouths, scared to death, Demao wished he could run away quickly. However, my legs and feet became weak and I couldn't stand up at all. I can only move back and threaten both of them at the same time. Speaking, Zhang Yuan remembered that these two are Japanese. What should I do if I don't understand Chinese? So I racked my brains thinking about how to say things like Japanese and so on, but the more anxious I am, the more I can't remember it. In the end, we can only shout out the classic words that are familiar to all male compatriots across the country. Flax falls. Don't say this sentence is really useful. Upon hearing these words, the two of them indeed stopped their steps, immediately glanced at each other and burst into laughter. Zhang Yuan also saw that he had been ridiculed. Being ridiculed is better than losing one's life, right, but death is not scary. What's scary is waiting for death. He knew he would still take his own life when the two of them laughed enough. We need to find a way to save ourselves. Zhang Yuan forced himself to calm down. From 4 weeks of observation, this is a narrow alley, and the soil wall is not high, but I'm not a special forces soldier. The time spent flipping over was enough for the two Japanese soldiers to stab themselves in 2 blood holes. If there is no hope of escaping, then we can only counterattack. Unfortunately, the surroundings are bare, except for the pants and belts of the villagers, which can strangle people, not even a brick. Want to cry without tears? Glancing at the 38 large lids in the hands of the Japanese soldiers, Zhang Yuan swallowed his saliva. Although it's very dangerous, it's also the only way I can survive. While one person is bending down with a smile, Zhang Yuan pounced forward, grasped the 38th big lid with one hand, then support the ground with the gun barrel. With force on his waist, he kicked the distant Japanese soldiers away with one foot. With the help of rebound force, directly press your shoulder against the heart of the Japanese soldier in front of you. The whole action is clean and neat, extremely beautiful. However, such graceful movements can only exist in imagination. When Zhang Yuanfei pounced, he stepped on a pool of blood with a slippery foot and a soft leg. I didn't even fly out and just lay straight in front of the two of them. This scene made the devils laugh even harder. However, his resistance also made the two Japanese soldiers lose interest in playing around. Zhang Yuan endured the excruciating pain and lifted his head with difficulty. The only thing that finally caught the eye were 2 sparkling bayonets. 2. Shame on oneself, I've lost a lot of hair. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhang Yuan opened his eyes in a daze. What you see is not the heavenly court shrouded in fairy air, it's not a gloomy underworld either. What catches the eye is only a pitch-black roof. Didn't he die? Zhang Yuan quickly got started and explored his body thoroughly. No holes, no missing parts, that's great. So he breathed a sigh of relief and felt pain all over his body, quickly lying back. The sound caught the attention of the people outside the door. The door opens, a dirty little head crawled in, facing his 4 eyes. Zhang Yuan gang is about to ask a question, just saw the cerebellar pouch shrink back, then there was a loud shout. Uncle Chow. The person who was scared to pee by the Japanese woke up. Zhang Yuan quickly lifted the blanket and glanced at it. Ah. Shame on me, I've lost a lot of money. Then pull hard, cover your head and pretend to be dead. Before long, footsteps sounded and stopped by the bed. It should be Uncle Chow from that little kid's mouth, right? Zhang Yuan quickly tightened the blanket again. I only heard a kind voice say. Children are not sensible, don't take it to heart. It's normal for them to go to the battlefield for the first time, it's not a big deal. After hearing these words, Zhang Yuan only wanted to slap the sole of his shoe. Standing and talking doesn't hurt your back, and it's not you who wet your pants. I think you're a student, so why did you come here? Zhang Yuan didn't answer, although it was others who didn't feel embarrassed, but I can't do it. A person in their 40s was so scared that they wet their pants. If those old guys know about this, where will this old face go? Wait. White and pure. Students. This person's surname Chow is blind, isn't he? I am quite white, but my face is full of wrinkles. How can I tell it's from a student? When I was wondering, I heard again, we were also quite scared when we went to the battlefield for the first time. Bullets brushed against our scalp, causing a painful scratch. With the sound of the Japanese grenade, the team urinated several times. Zhang Yuan heard more and more things go wrong, and suddenly lifted the blanket and sat up. In front of me was a thin and dark middle-aged man. At this moment, it seemed like something was on my mind, with a hint of sadness and longing in my eyes, mixed with sadness and anger. This gaze stunned him, forgetting what to say. Uncle Chow saw that he was finally not shy anymore and patted his shoulder, saying, just wake up and it's good. What's your name? Zhang Yuan stared blankly at the man in front of him. A huge wave surged in my heart. Although my emotional intelligence is a bit low as a science student, my IQ is definitely not low. What happened before and what Uncle Chow said, let him have a bad premonition in his heart. A weak person asked, what is the date today? On the 6th day of April, which year? Uncle Chow looked at him with a puzzled expression and said, in the 27th year of the Republic of China. Zhang Yuan was taken aback. The Republic of China chronicles the July 7th incident occurred in 1937 and the 26th year of the Republic of China. The 27th year of the Republic of China will be 1938. I've traveled by myself. Zhang Yuan looked at Uncle Chow in shock. Without giving up, he asked again, Palace Jade Liquor. Uncle Chow touched his forehead. After saying a good rest, he left. When closing the door, Zhang Yuan heard a sentence. This kid may have hit his head, you idiot. Zhang Yuan lay down for 3 days. It's all that dirty little brat who made him die in society delivering food to him. In fact, rice is porridge, not rice congee. It's something similar to bran. Drinking it makes one's throat skip a beat. Fortunately, his adaptability is still very strong. Actually, I can't stand being hungry anymore. Chatting with children, let Zhang Yuan also understand the whole story. The child's name is Dog Egg, a name with distinctive characteristics of the times. People from Shangzhuang village. This small village is located in Shaanxi province, near the Taihang mountains. Uncle Chow is the captain of the guerrilla team in Shangzhuang village. He also saved himself. That day, the Japanese soldiers were about to kill him. Coincidentally, I was hit by a guerrilla team led by Uncle Chow, save him, but still sacrificed a soldier. The gun in his hand failed to fire, killed by the enemy soldiers. This news made Zhang Yuan feel very sad. Although he didn't go specifically to save him, he did sacrifice himself because of saving himself. Zhang Yuan arrived at the rudimentary tomb of this soldier. The tomb of Chow Lao-san is written crookedly on a wooden board. Zhang Yuan stared at the handwriting for a long time before bowing deeply. Don't blame yourself. The third person even pulled a cushion before he died. It's not a loss. Captain Chow walked up from behind and patted the wooden board, as if patting the shoulder of an old man. Looking at his back, Zhang Yuan's eyes turned slightly red. Unfortunately, his old gun didn't fire at the critical moment, otherwise. Speaking of this, Captain Chow's shoulders also trembled slightly. But it quickly recovered. Turning his mind, he asked, young man, tell me your name and where do you come from. These days, Zhang Yuan also realized that his current body is only in his 20s, indeed, he can be considered a young man. He also made up a fairly reasonable account about the past few days. My name is Zhang Yuan, from my hometown of Shuzhou. I got separated from my family while trying to escape, and those who were confused came here. The land in Shuzhou is quite chaotic. Lao Chaoan nodded slightly. He thought for a moment and then said, this is a chaotic military situation. Don't wander around, settle down in the village first, find some work to do, and I can still manage your food. Zhang Yuan didn't have any other place to go, so he agreed. When Zhang Yuan left, another soldier walked up to Captain Chao and said, this person's origin is unknown, and he can also speak Japanese. Why did you leave him behind? Just because his background is unknown, we can't let him run around. Let's take a look under his nose first. So why bother, just? She said with a motion of wiping her neck. Captain Chao glanced at him and said, nonsense. If I make a mistake, he's really a student. What should I do? In the next few days, Zhang Yuan was extremely depressed, and it can be said that he was too idle to panic. He doesn't know how to do farm work, and the villagers keep a distance from him, even if it's unclear. Captain Chao doesn't know what he's busy with either. The only dog egg that can speak up, Zhang Yuan is eager to avoid him. The little kid looked contemptuous when he saw him. Unfortunately, Zhang Yuan still doesn't know how to refute them. This feeling of being out of place drove Zhang Yuan crazy. I used to have a good life, stable work, and a happy family. Inexplicably arrived in the damn year of 1938, I didn't eat, drink, or play, always worry about the bullets and bayonets of the Japanese. Zhang Yuan remembers that in the next few years, the Japanese have swept up several times. How can I ensure my safe survival? Seeking collection, seeking attention, thank you for your support. 3. Golden Finger appears, how steel was tempered. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As the 5 good young people born under the red flag and growing up in the spring breeze, Zhang Yuan was also a very skilled engineer in his past life. Whether it is manual or CNC machine tools, he wants to become proficient in what he uses, and I am also a complete military fan. There is also some research on various firearms and artillery, even made plastic in 5, 6, and a half for his son. After being idle for so many days, Zhang Yuan also wanted to contribute to the anti-Japanese war with his mechanical knowledge. But after wandering for a few days, he realized that, even if his mind is full of knowledge from later generations, in today's situation, I can't do anything by myself, no electricity, no machine tools, let alone steel. The entire Shangzhuan village, in addition to the several small and large hammers of blacksmithly at the village head, it's just simple farming tools for each household. With these, let alone making guns, I can't even make a gun hair. Zhang Yuan really didn't expect that, as a highly talented student in science and engineering, in addition, over a decade of production experience in the field of mechanical processing, in this era, it is impossible to make a gun, a bullet. After a moment of emotion, Zhang Yuan tidied up his mood and began to plan how to make a gun. The most important thing about a gun is its barrel. When bullets are fired, they generate tremendous pressure, and it will generate enormous heat. This way, the barrel not only needs to have sufficient strength, but you also need to have strong lateral stubbornness. In addition, good heat resistance and corrosion resistance are also necessary. In later generations, there were chromium molybdenum steel, high nickel steel, or rare earth steel used for gun barrels. Look at these names. Apart from knowing several methods such as open hearth steelmaking, blast furnace steelmaking, and electric furnace steelmaking, the specific material ratio and smelting process are really confusing. If only I could search on Baidu. Zhang Yuan, who had no idea at all, decided to forget all of this, lying in bed and starting to daydream. Remembering the day before my journey, I also lay in bed like this, but that would be blowing the air conditioner and brushing the phone. Now I can only stare blankly at the pitch-black ceiling. There are still a few episodes of the blade forging competition that I haven't finished watching. Is Odibio still pulling bananas? Can Bataille's brothers rub MG42 with their hands? Thinking about it, I fell asleep. Perhaps there are thoughts and dreams in the day. Gradually, images began to form in my mind. These are all videos of modern steelmaking, from a few tons of small electric furnaces, to hundreds of tons of large converters. Zhang Yuan became very interested in watching videos. I spent half a day scrolling through the scenes of steelmaking, and I couldn't even see the structure. So he began to inquire about the development history of steelmaking, the structure of open hearth furnaces, converters, electric furnaces. When watching videos, time always flies. It will be dawn soon. After Zhang Yuan woke up, he felt his head was confused. It's like playing with a phone all night. I vaguely remember some of the content in my dream. Zhang Yuan quickly found a branch. I want to record the knowledge I still remember, but in my dream, I watched at least 100 or 200 videos. I can't remember it all at once. He had no choice but to endure and sort it out. Firstly, a large converter cannot be built. I have no ability at all. The electric stove doesn't work either. The whole village doesn't even have a light bulb. After much thought, the size of the stove of the Lao Ba brothers is quite suitable, but Zhang Yuan doesn't remember what kind of stove they used anymore. I only remember it was buried underground. If only I could take a closer look at it. Thinking of this, a video interface suddenly reappeared in my mind, the official video of the Ba brothers steelmaking displayed inside. Now Zhang Yuan was startled and jumped up straight. The image in my mind also disappeared. Is it because I was too engrossed in my thoughts and had hallucinations? Or is it the legendary golden finger? Give it another try. With the preparation in his heart, he became much more calm. After all, things like traveling can happen, and it's quite normal to have a system or something like that. Unfortunately, after his repeated experiments, his golden finger is a video platform. It is similar to the combination of TikTok and Kwai. As long as he concentrates, you can see the video you want to watch. Zhang Yuan is so happy now. What do you want to create? Just watch videos to learn and learn. Quickly concentrate and take a look at the method of steelmaking. Steelmaking, in simple terms, is the process of removing impurities from iron. There are two main methods of modern steelmaking. Converter steelmaking and electric furnace steelmaking. We won't consider the electric stove anymore. Zhang Yuan began searching for information related to converter steelmaking. To stabilize the quality of steel production, the furnace temperature needs to be at least 1,500 degrees, however, a typical stove can only reach 1,200 degrees. To increase the furnace temperature, it is necessary to inject pure oxygen into the furnace to increase the furnace temperature. Upon seeing this, Zhang Yuan began to search for industrial production methods for oxygen. He found that there are generally three ways to produce industrial oxygen. 1. Separation of liquid air method. 2. Membrane separation technology. 3. Molecular sieve oxygen production method. At first glance, I was dumbfounded. What should I do with liquid air? It's both a membrane and a molecule. Quickly change the title, the simplest industrial oxygen production method. As a result, a bunch of videos of laboratory oxygen production emerged, not to mention where hydrogen peroxide and manganese dioxide come from. Let's talk about how much it can be blown into the furnace. Continuing to browse, I finally found a video of industrial oxygen production. The simplest method is to separate liquid air. By utilizing the fact that the boiling point of nitrogen in the air is lower than that of oxygen, the air is first pressurized and cooled to a liquid state, and then heated. As the boiling point of liquid nitrogen, 0.196 degrees Celsius, is lower than that of oxygen, 0.183 degrees Celsius, nitrogen first evaporates from the liquid air, leaving behind liquid oxygen. But the problem has arisen again: how can air become liquid? Zhang Yuan had no choice but to re-examine the method of liquefied air. The method found is to continuously pressurize and cool the air. This can reach 0.193 degrees Celsius, and the air will liquefy. What tool is used to apply pressure? What tools are used to cool down? What materials are used for storage? This result made Zhang Yuan couldn't help but feel overwhelmed. The steel that will soon become rampant in later generations, why is it so difficult to practice today? Please follow and collect, thank you for your support. For idle and flustered, find something to do. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The steelmaking incident dealt Zhang Yuan a moderate blow. Industrial development is a systematic development. It is still very difficult to develop one independently. Just as Zhang Yuan sighed, a loud noise came from outside the door. As soon as I left, I saw everyone running towards the village entrance. I don't know what happened either. After thinking about it, Zhang Yuan also followed suit. I only realized at the village entrance that, it turned out that Captain Chow, who had been missing for several days, had returned with the guerrilla team. They obviously went through combat. Most people have injuries on their bodies, some people are directly carried back. As the team walked in, the village chief approached and asked, "Xiao Chow, what's going on here? Have you encountered the little devils?" We're all thinking nonsense. No, we ambushed a group of puppet soldiers and didn't capture much. We also broke a few guns, and this transaction resulted in a big loss. They originally intended to obtain some weapons and ammunition from the puppet army. After waiting for a few days, I finally encountered a dozen or so puppet soldiers, but these grandsons were able to escape. We just fired on this side, but as soon as we ran away, we slipped away. The soldiers are also relentlessly pursuing. Unfortunately, they didn't catch up in the end. 2 soldiers on the road also smashed their guns. Cleaning the battlefield revealed that only 3 Hanyang-made bullets were captured, and they didn't fire as many as they did. This result is a bit unacceptable to everyone. In theory, an ambush should not only have this little result. Unfortunately, they only have less than 10 guns in their hands, and more than half of them are still local guns. The range is really moving, and accuracy depends entirely on luck. Zhang Yuan really pinched their sweat for them. Fortunately, these puppet troops ran away directly. If the opponent counterattacks, Lao Chao and his team will have these 7 or 8 old and broken spears in their hands, along with other people's red tassels and big swords. The outcome of the battle is really hard to say. Fortunately, there were no casualties. As for their injuries, most of them were scraped by branches or stones during pursuit, and carrying them on my back was causing me to sprain to my feet. As the crowd slowly dispersed, Zhang Yuan hurriedly stepped forward. "There's nothing I can do. After all these days, there's nothing to do and no one to talk to him." It really suffocated him. "Uncle Chow, I'm a mechanical student. I heard that some of your guns are broken. Let me take a look, maybe I can fix them." Captain Chow looked at him before saying, "Come on. Follow the captain to a simple thatched hut, where several soldiers are looking at their guns in pain. You said I had to hold it for a long time. Look, you've already dented it. How can you use it again in the future?" The soldier who was accused did not refute, but just drooped his head. After calming everyone, Captain Chow picked up the earthen gun and handed it to Zhang Yuan. Zhang Yuan glanced and found out that it was still a front chamber gun. The problem is not big, it's just that the hammer was broken by the impact. Looking at this old man's gun, he couldn't help but curl his lips and say, "This old gun, even if it's fixed, won't kill anyone." As soon as these words were spoken, the soldiers who had been trained before were no longer willing. Stand up and loudly retort, "Who says you can't kill anyone? I've killed a puppet army with this gun." After speaking, he still held his head high, exuding pride from the inside out. Zhang Yuan also realized that his previous words were indeed incorrect. Hurry up and apologize to the soldiers, but we can't blame him either. Any modern person who sees this kind of gun in its hundreds and tens of years old, isn't everyone looking disdainful and contemptuous? But it's just this kind of master's gun, and the guerrilla team doesn't have a legal person to handle it. Every soldier will treasure their gun. The hardships of this era are far from what Zhang Yuan can understand from the simple sentences in history books. But he quickly adjusted his mindset and started researching. This gun is not difficult to repair, just make a new hammer. Captain Chow remained silent and handed over an old sleeve. Zhang Yuan is too familiar with this gun. This gun was imported from Germany by the Qing government in 1896 as part of the 1888 Committee Rifle production line. It was handed over to the Hanyang arsenal for imitation, and due to the sleeve on the barrel, it is affectionately referred to as the old sleeve. In 1904, the Hanyang arsenal improved its production process by eliminating sleeves. Afterwards, the famous Hanyang factory was produced. In fact, Hanyang made is an improved version of the old sleeve. This gun uses 7.92 caliber bullets, total length 955 mm, total weight 3.166 kg, excluding bayonet, gun barrel length 442 mm. The range of the gauge is 1800 m. High shooting accuracy, produced in China for over 50 years, it's a very good rifle. Unfortunately, the gun in his hand, the rifling almost worn out. Zhang Yuan tried to pull the bolt of the gun, but it couldn't move. I don't know where it got stuck, so he dismantled the gun and inspected it. He didn't notice, when Captain Chow saw him skillfully dismantling the old sleeve, an inexplicable light flashed in my eyes. As an experienced engineer, this small flaw naturally cannot stop him. Pick up the tools on the edge and skillfully repair the deformed areas. Soon, this old sleeve was fixed. Zhang Yuan gestured again with his hand the size of the earth gun hammer. After saying hello, I went to find the blacksmith. It didn't take long for the thing to be ready. Replace it with a new hammer. This old man's gun can continue to shine and heat up for a while. Watching the soldiers leave happily, Zhang Yuan also felt a sense of satisfaction in his heart. Although steelmaking is not good, my own craftsmanship is still very good, and repair are still easy to come by. After feeling proud, he asked Uncle Chow in confusion. Didn't we capture 238 great covers last time? Today, there are still Hanyang craftsmen here. Why do they still use these old guns? These Captain Chow didn't hide anything. Those good guns have all been given to regular troops, and they don't have enough guns now. After Captain Chow's explanation, Zhang Yuan only found out now, my regular army is currently extremely lacking in weapons. Usually 2 or 3 people have one gun, each person only has 3 or 4 bullets. That's why my rabbit is called the 3-spear rabbit. After firing 3 shots, charge. It's not that you don't want to fire more, it's because there are really no bullets. Soldiers without guns use red tassels and large knives, charge along with the troops and engage in a fierce battle. Many people online still say that my rabbit has suffered heavy casualties, battle damage compared to pulling the crotch. Do you dare to charge for this equipment? My ancestors are really risking their lives. Speaking of this, Zhang Yuan suddenly remembered to reload bullets. I can't make a gun, I can make some bullets, so he quickly said. Uncle Chow, do you have any empty casings? Captain Chow was taken aback by the words and said, yes, but why do you want that thing? Since he had only heard of reloading, he was not confident in producing it, nor did he dare to say enough, I want to try making reloaded bullets. Although Captain Chow didn't quite understand what reinstallation meant, but he heard about making bullets. My eyes are all bright. Can you make bullets? Either making bullets or reloading old casings will result in significantly lower range and accuracy compared to new bullets. Captain Chow completely ignored the issues of range and accuracy, and excitedly said, can you really make bullets? Zhang Yuan thought of having a golden finger to help with the reinstallation, so it shouldn't be a big problem. After all, our ancestors were able to create it in person. But he didn't dare to say it out loud. I don't know either. I heard the teacher say it before, so I want to give it a try. Feel free to try, as long as you can make bullets, just say what you need and I'll find a way to do it. Looking at the excited Captain Chow, Zhang Yuan quickly comforted him. I want to go back and study first, I need to mention it to him again, so he quickly took the shell case back to the house. 5. I can't understand even copying. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhang Yuan returned to his room. Just concentrate and start searching for relevant videos about bullets. The structure of bullets is very simple, it is composed of 4 parts. Warhead, casing, propellant, and primer. Although the structure is simple, the manufacturing process is not at all simple. The production of shell casings is the most difficult. Professional equipment is required to shape copper sheets through multiple stamping processes, and Zhang Yuan doesn't have any equipment here, so he can't even produce new bullets. This is also why he thought of reloading the bomb. Reload bullets, it's about reshaping, cleaning, and trimming the fired bullet case, add homemade bullets, gunpowder, and primer. The production difficulty is much lower. This is also an important source of bullets for me in the later stage of the anti-Japanese war. The production process of warheads is relatively simple. Half of it consists of a bullet core and armor. There are also various types of bullet cores, most of them are lead cores. Special bullets also include steel cores, incendiary agents, and tracer agents. The armor is generally made of materials such as white copper, brass, and copper-clad steel. The rest is to load the primer and propellant, finally assemble the warhead. One bullet is complete. After watching various videos, Zhang Yuan has a rough understanding of bullets. After all, his golden finger is just a civilian level 1, there is no detailed introduction to weapons, just some public information. Although I have gained a general understanding of the structure and principles, but it still made Zhang Yuan difficult again. The problem lies in the primer and propellant. The video introduces that a common primer in the past was mercuric acid. However, mercury-containing propellants are prone to corroding weapons, so it is gradually replaced by components such as rust-free primer tetrazine, lead stiffnate, antimony sulfide, potassium hypochlorite, etc. Zhang Yuan was stunned after reading it. Don't talk about the nitrogen and chlorine behind it. It's the early mercuric acid. He doesn't even know him at all. I have to investigate again how mercuric acid came from. The manufacturing method is very simple. Nitric acid and mercury are mixed to react to form mercuric acid. Next, Zhang Yuan examined the industrial production method of nitric acid. It was found that the production of nitric acid requires obtaining sulfuric acid first. Similarly, propellants also have similar issues. Captain Chow and his team are still using black gunpowder as propellant. It's not that it can't be used, it's just that the black gunpowder has a fierce temper and can easily catch fire. Production, transportation, and storage are all very inconvenient. Moreover, the combustion speed of black gunpowder is uneven and it is also prone to moisture. This will result in low bullet power and poor stability. In modern times, smokeless gunpowder is used as propellant. The most common type of smokeless gunpowder is nitrocellulose. The production method of nitrocellulose is not difficult either. Just put cotton in concentrated sulfuric acid and nitric acid bubbles, and then. There was no more. When I saw this picture, I stopped. Without sulfuric acid and nitric acid, the following steps are not very meaningful, whether you look at them or not. I originally heard that the anti-Japanese predecessors were unable to make bullets during their time. He persisted in the war of resistance with reloaded bullets. The annual output can still reach several 100,000 pieces, make him subconsciously think that reloading bullets is easy to manufacture, but the reality is that he can't even copy the standard answer clearly. Smokeless gunpowder can be replaced with black gunpowder, it's just that the bullet's performance is poor. Can still make do with it, but what can replace the mercuric acid in this primer? We can't replace it with that bird's tetrazine. Can we? Zhang Yuan is going crazy, he really can't figure it out. How did those ancestors get the reloaded bullets out? He spent most of the day watching videos. The result was that even the theory could not be solved. Feeling depressed, he threw down his shell and went out. I thought I had advanced knowledge from later generations. Add this weak chicken golden finger to the video playback. It's not easy to make some technology from the 1970s and 1980s here. But reality really taught Zhang Yuan a lesson. Although he used to be an engineer, I can be considered an industry insider. Industry is a complex comprehensive system. In later generations, Huaxia has a complete supporting system. He just needs to tell people what materials he wants. He only needs to be responsible for design and processing. Now he needs to rebuild from the top of the industry. The difficulty was completely unimaginable to him before. This made his already fearful heart even more uneasy because of his sudden crossing. Zhang Yuan was lost and unconsciously came to the tomb of Chao Lao San, this stranger. He died because of himself, but he doesn't even know what the other person looks like. He suddenly felt very useless and incompetent. I used to be complacent about becoming an engineer. Wherever you go, others will respectfully shout, Zhang Gong. That's because I always unconsciously straighten my chest. But my so-called achievements and honors, they are all built on the complete industrial system of China. Without Huaxia, he's nothing. When it comes to truly needing one's own efforts, but I am useless and cannot do anything. At this moment, Zhang Yuan's pride and confidence were shattered. I don't want to stay here, I want to go back, let me go back. Zhang Yuan buried his head deep in his knees. Comrade Zhang. Are you here? Have you finished reloading the bullets? Upon hearing the familiar sound, he quickly rubbed his face against his legs, turning around. Who is it? Not Captain Chow. Zhang Yuan gave an awkward smile. I wanted to tell the truth, but I couldn't even create it myself, but seeing that thin face, and the hopeful light in his eyes, I can't do it. These 3 words are stuck in my throat and I can't say anything. I'm a bit embarrassed, but there are still some questions that I haven't figured out. Captain Chow sat beside him and said. I'm just a rough guy who doesn't understand these things, but if there's anything you need our help with, just say it. As long as you can make bullets, let's do whatever we want. 6. Whether it's advanced or not, suitability is the most important thing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Captain Chow's words made Zhang Yuan feel very affected. Compared to the soldiers, what is one's own business? Have you been to the battlefield? Have you faced the barrage of bullets? Isn't it just about traveling to a strange place? No one forces me to go to the battlefield, afraid of a hammer. Isn't it just that making things is difficult? Why did you just hesitate? Pop pop. Zhang Yuan slapped himself hard twice. Captain Chow, who was shocked, quickly grabbed his hand. What's wrong? If we can't make it, we can't make it. We can still go and capture it. It's really not possible. We still have big knives and long hair. Why can't we fight the Japanese? The captain's words made Zhang Yuan feel even more ashamed. Compared to the difficulties they encountered, the difficulties I encounter are nothing. Zhang Yuan stood up and looked at Captain Chow firmly, saying. Captain, don't worry, I dare not say the new one. I can definitely get the reloaded bullets. After speaking, he left with a big meteor. On the way back, Zhang Yuan had already hidden all the confusion in his heart. My intelligent brain has also regained its high ground. Since the primer cannot be fixed for the time being, let's just ignore it. First, come up with the rest. Zhang Yuan searched in the video again for a while. Finally, the process flow for reloading bullets has been determined. So I asked Captain Chow again for people and things. The captain quickly arranged for about 10 people to give him. Among them are Blacksmith Lee and the soldier who wants to wipe his neck. The others are all half-aged children. Thus, the research group on reloaded bullets was officially established. Master Lee, could you please make a few iron rods according to the size of the bullets? You can reduce the excess part of the shell opening and grind it flat. Then put it in the basket, then put it in the fine sand, and you just start shaking. Zhang Yuan began to command in an orderly manner. The shell repair work went very smoothly. Next is the production of warheads. They don't have lead or steel on hand. However, Zhang Yuan has seen tin bullet cores in the video. Tin has low hardness, low melting point, and is easy to process. Melt the collected tin utensils, and then cast it into the shape of a bullet core. It's rare to see the production of the armor. This is made by pressing copper. The village simply does not have the ability to produce copper plates. Finally, after discussing with Master Lee, cut open the severely deformed bullet case, roll it flat with a rolling pin, it becomes a qualified copper sheet. Continuing with Blacksmith Lee, I made a machine for compressing bullets. The structure is similar to a manual stamping machine. Make the wood look like a C-dot shape, to serve as a support, passing through an iron rod as a punching rod above. Make a handle on the side and connect it to the punch using gears. The punch is made into a conical shape according to the shape of the bullet. Place another bullet-shaped iron mold below. This simple punching machine is ready. Using the principle of leverage, a child can punch out qualified armor. Then, after cutting and polishing, put the tin bullet core inside. It becomes a complete warhead. Captain Chow looked at those bullets and casings. Joyful is seeing teeth but not eyes, murmured, we have bullets, we produce them ourselves. Zhang Yuan poured cold water out of place. The primer hasn't been resolved yet. and the bullets can't make a sound. Captain Chow was taken aback and asked in confusion, just put on the primer, what's the problem? Zhang Yuan put down the loading machine he was making, patiently explain. Primer is usually made of mercuric acid, and some countries have started to replace it with non-corrosive lead azide. We can't do either of these. After speaking, he reluctantly spread out his hand to the captain. But Captain Chow didn't have a hint of sadness on his face. Instead, he laughed, I haven't heard of the mercury and lead you mentioned, but the primer is easy to make, just use a matchstick head and matchstick skin. This time it's Zhang Yuanmeng's turn to push, match head. Match skin. After thinking for a moment, he slapped his head, accusing oneself of being foolish. The primer is originally designed to produce flames, ignite black fire for medicinal purposes. Why can't the match be used? It's not important what to use, as long as it can ignite. I just thought about the introduction in the video, completely brainless. Really, this also reminded Zhang Yuan, regardless of whether it is advanced technology or traditional methods, the most crucial thing is to be able to use it, the right is the best. So, at the reminder of Captain Chow, composed of tin core warheads, black powder propellants, and match primer, Shangzhuang Village's reloaded bullets have officially been born. Captain Chow impatiently brought a Hanyang-made rifle that was about to be loaded with bullets. Zhang Yuan quickly stopped him, don't try that good gun, what if it explodes? Lao Chao just replaced his old barrel rifle with a worn-out rifling. Finally, with Zhang Yuan's persistence, a few people hid behind the tree, pulling the trigger with ropes. The experiment has begun. I fired 10 bullets but didn't explode. Zhang Yuan quickly stepped forward to check. There's no problem with the gun. Looking at the target again, the trajectory distribution is so wide, the accuracy is not good, the crater is not deep, and the power is also a bit poor. Zhang Yuan felt a bit frustrated. There is still a considerable gap compared to what was imagined, but Captain Chow and the others cheered directly. Everyone even lifted Zhang Yuan up, throw high into the air. It took a long time for Zhang Yuan to be released. Thank you so much, Comrade Zhang Yuan. Captain Chow held his hand and choked up. The neck-wiping warrior rushed over and grabbed his other hand. I'm sorry to you, my second pillar. If you speak up and I frown, it's not a matter of carrying a handle. Zhang Yuan didn't know that Zhu felt guilty for proposing to wipe his neck before. Completely in a state of confusion, I don't know how to answer, so I can only leave it unanswered. Watching Captain Chow with tears streaming down his face, he said, the test is not over yet, we still need to test the range. Only halfway through the conversation, Captain Chow's eyes didn't turn red, and tears stopped flowing. Put the remaining bullets into your arms and cover them tightly. No need, bullets are expensive. Let's go to the battlefield and try them out. As he spoke, he was about to run. Zhang Yuan grabbed it and patiently advised for a while, it's for the lives of soldiers, and it's also for better killing of enemies. This old Chow refuses to eat either soft or hard, and firmly disagrees. Finally, Zhang Yuan proposed to observe performance for easy improvement. This miser reluctantly agreed to take 3 more. 7. Increase production. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The result was similar to what Zhang Yuan had anticipated. The range of reloaded bullets is only about half that of new bullets. Even so, it also made the soldiers led by Lao Chao overjoyed. Everyone was holding a few bullets, watching eagerly, with that cautious look. I guess my daughter-in-law's hands have never been so gentle before. Comrade Zhang Yuan, how about our bullet production? After being excited, Captain Chow finally began to care about the main matter. Listening to Lao Chao's address, Zhang Yuan felt uncomfortable all over. Don't be too old, Comrade Zhang Yuan. If Comrade Zhang Yuan calls, just call him Zhang Yuan or Xiao Zhang. He doesn't care about addressing people. Now he only has bullets in his eyes. Listening to Zhang Yuan's words, he just nodded perfunctorily. Zhang Yuan felt helpless and didn't hesitate anymore. I calculated in my heart, according to our current manpower, if the raw materials are sufficient, we can pack 40 or 50 in a day. So little. Now it's just an experiment, the personnel are not proficient, the tools are too rudimentary, and low efficiency is normal. Looking at the 10 or so young boys, old Chowan nodded clearly. Then I'll organize some dexterous people, let's expand the team and increase production. What other tools are needed, I'll figure out a way to get them for you. The most troublesome part of reloading bullets is actually dealing with the bullet case. This requires patience and attention to detail. The remaining work is not difficult, the required tools are not complicated either. Zhang Yuan has already conceived the idea, it doesn't require anything special, so he said, until we don't need anything special, I can make the tools together with brotherly. After thinking for a moment, he added, be careful when it comes to loading gunpowder. We need to take safety precautions in advance, and everything else will be fine. After a brief conversation, the two of them got busy with each other. Captain Chow arranged for everyone to collect bullet casings from all over the place. On the one hand, organize villagers to establish production teams. At Zhang Yuan's proposal, we will directly adopt assembly line operations, directly divided into several working groups, specially responsible for repairing bullet casings, specially polished and polished, specializing in making tin bullets and so on. And Zhang Yuan, along with Masterly, create some convenient and simple tools for each process. I made a pliers similar to a tiger's pliers for the person trimming bullets. There are several circular holes of different sizes made on it. With the help of a hole expander, the bullets can be quickly trimmed. As for the mechanism for polishing bullets, it's even simpler. It's just adding a rotating base under the basket. The basket is not flat but tilted at a certain angle when placed on top. The principle is similar to that of a drum washing machine. It can be quickly polished using friction when turned. The process of making warheads has also been improved by Zhang Yuan. The original method of stamping bullet casings was too cumbersome. After each stamping, the edges need to be cut and polished. It is time-consuming and laborious, and not yet standardized. Simply change it to casting, but the surface of the cast bullet case is rough and the size fluctuates. Zhang Yuan made another tool similar to a pencil sharpener. Simply clip the bullet case onto the hand drill and rotate it a few times to make it smooth, then pour molten tin directly into the warhead. Finally, perform processes such as tail reduction and edge trimming at the end of the projectile. The stamping machine originally used for stamping bullet casings was not wasted. He added a connecting rod, changed to simultaneously apply force up and down. This way, the warhead and primer can be pressed together on the cartridge case. The assembly speed has also significantly improved. As for the aspect of drug loading, he doesn't have many good options. It can only be carefully weighed by people. This also leads to significant errors in the loading of bullets. However, the power of black gunpowder is limited. It's not likely to explode. It means it has some impact on the range. In about 10 days, the production team completed the break.in, but due to raw material issues, I can also reload 200 to 300 bullets every day. Zhang Yuan is very dissatisfied with this output. You should know that before the Japanese infantry went to the battlefield, usually, you can receive 2 bullet boxes. This type of ammunition box is called the Meiji 30 style ammunition box. A box can hold 6 bridge clips, each with 5 bullets. There are 30 bullets in one box, and each soldier is equipped with 2. There are a total of 60 bullets. According to my rabbit carrying capacity, I will have it and have 30 rabbits per person. The daily output of the production team is only enough for 10 soldiers to use. However, Captain Chow was very happy. 300 pills a day, it's enough to use one in 2 days. That's great. This made Zhang Yuan emo again. Indeed, I am used to living a difficult life. Having 5 bullets per person makes old Chow happy like this, but Zhang Yuan couldn't do anything about it. The collection of shell casings is still too limited. There aren't enough matches, either. There's no way to increase production. It can only be for the soldiers to pay more attention to collecting in the future. Captain Chow, in the future, soldiers will have to exchange their collars for bullet casings. That's necessary. Give them 5 casings to replace with 1 bullet, haha. Zhang Yuan never expected this upright-looking old Chow. Surprisingly, my heart is so dark, but that doesn't matter anymore. The bullet reloading process has been completed. There's nothing left for Zhang Yuan. Zhang Yuan began to search for something else again. As long as he gets busy, he won't have wild thoughts and his heart will be at ease. In these days, he also learned about the information of the ancestors who used earthwork method to make weapons during the Anti-Japanese War. Not to mention, our ancestors, under such difficult conditions, the guns, cannons, bullets, and so on were all sorted out. Zhang Yuan took out a list and handed it to Captain Chow. These are some materials I need. Do you think you can find them? The captain carefully read the note. After a moment of embarrassment, I scratched my head. I can't read. You still read so seriously for a long time without knowing how to read, really. Zhang Yuan rolled his eyes and was about to retrieve the note. I saw that old Chow had already stuffed the note into his shirt pocket, and he explained to him, who was full of doubts. In the afternoon, I brought bullets to the army and handed this order to the political commissar. He is a cultured person. As early as the first bullet test, Lao Chow had already reported it. Actually, there are people in the production team who are my rabbit, because they searched for a long time but couldn't find out Zhang Yuan's background. But this war is chaotic, with Japanese blockades everywhere. It's quite troublesome to find out a person's background. Zhang Yuan doesn't have any proof of identity on him either. This has to make people have multiple thoughts. As an aside, during the Anti-Japanese War, there were actually identity documents available. The Japanese occupation zone is the legendary certificate of good people. The bald government issues the national identity card of the Republic of China. The skinhead's ID card number is 0000001. In addition, there are various certificates such as marriage certificate, lawyer's certificate, traditional Chinese medicine certificate, etc. There are even prostitute certificates. Please follow and collect. Thank you for your support. 8. Combination of local and foreign cultures. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhang Yuan still didn't know that he was listed as a suspect by others. After handing over the order to Lao Chow, start combining the content that can be found in the video. I have come to plan my own industrial route. Guns and cannons must be made, but now there is no suitable steel available. Secondly, there is no processing equipment available. Although the video mentioned that I, the rabbit, have made guns and cannons, the barrel is made of latte rail. I don't know what material is used for the gun barrel. Zhang Yuan had to put this back. Search carefully in the video later, see if you can find more useful information. Zhang Yuan has already thoroughly investigated the production process of the new bullet. The current problem is a shortage of copper and zinc. However, substitutes can be found for all of these. Leave the missing materials to Captain Chow to search for. Although weapons and ammunition cannot be made now, but he saw a video introducing my rabbit using a water tank to make sulfuric acid. This also led him to set his next work goals. Sulfuric acid is known as the mother of industry. It is an important industrial raw material, can be used to manufacture fertilizers, drugs, explosives, pigments, detergents, batteries, etc. It is also widely used in industries such as purifying petroleum, metal smelting, and dyes. Leaving aside the rest, sulfuric acid is essential for smokeless explosives. In fact, the production principle of sulfuric acid is not difficult. The main raw materials are sulfur and iron sulfide. First, burn or roast sulfur or pyrite in the air, obtain sulfur dioxide gas, then convert sulfur dioxide into sulfur trioxide. Finally, oxidation yields sulfuric acid. The industrial production of sulfuric acid mainly includes nitrification and contact methods. According to the evolution of the main equipment, there are two types: lead chamber method and tower method. Zhang Yuan also couldn't understand the specific differences in these methods. I knew my rabbit used the lead chamber method back then. Since that's the case, Zhang Yuan doesn't need that brain anymore. Just adopt the principle of borrowing directly. After all, let a mechanical engineer play chemistry. It's really a bit difficult to handle. I have clarified the theory, then gather manpower and start work. But he wandered around for a long time but couldn't find Captain Chow. Fortunately, the pillar stopped him. Zhang, what are you looking for here? Find Captain Chow. We need some manpower and something else. The captain has gone to the meeting. Just come to me if you need anything. Zhang Yuan, a male engineer, is not polite to others. First, let him find a hidden spot for the venue. After all, we have worked hard to establish a sulfuric acid workshop, we have to keep some little devils away. The pillar asked the requirements clearly, and after thinking for a while, they took Zhang Yuan out of the village. After walking for a long time with twists and turns, Zhang Yuan feels a bit sore in his legs. Just arrived at a valley, there is a sunken flat land in the valley, it's not too big, it's only 200 or 300 square meters, but it's enough to set up a workshop. The key is concealment, with overhead obstruction. Even the Japanese plane cannot see here. The place has been selected, and let the pillar pick some trustworthy hands, prepare a water tank, pottery pipes, and clay. Start working in the valley. First, establish a boiling chamber, it's actually a furnace used for calcining sulfur or pyrite. And extend it out on the stove as a saltpeter jar. Why put saltpeter? Zhang Yuan doesn't understand. The video says that putting this thing can increase production. Next, it's time to build the lead chamber. Why use lead? This is because sulfuric acid has extremely high corrosiveness. Lead and stainless steel are the most ideal materials. Zhang Yuan doesn't have either of these, and the water tanks discovered by our ancestors also have good corrosion resistance, just replacing the lead chamber. Place the 2 water cylinder ports facing each other. There are 4 water tanks like this in the video. Zhang Yuan only released 4 of them. Then, following the image in the video, connect all the water tanks with ceramic pipes, then seal all the joints with clay. A simple cylinder-type acid-making equipment can be completed. Just as Zhang Yuanzheng was commanding the testing of sealing, just as the pillar shouted, "Brother Zhang, the captain is looking for you. Hurry up and come back with me." Zhang Yuangang also needs to ask how the materials have been prepared, arrange personnel to inspect the sealing condition of the equipment, follow the pillar back to Shenzhuang village. Captain Chow is not the only one in the room. Across from him sat a middle-aged man in military uniform. There is a little warrior following behind this person. This is clearly my rabbit's officer. I don't know why he came. Captain Chow quickly stood up to introduce the 2 of them. This is Comrade Zhang Yuan. He made the reloading of bullets, but it helped us a lot. This is Comrade Han Dong, Deputy Commander of the 771st Regiment of our 386th Brigade. Upon hearing that it was the 386th Brigade, Zhang Yuan thought to himself, I'm familiar with this, isn't this Mr. Chen's army? Li Yunlong is under Mr. Chen's command, right? After a few pleasantries, Zhang Yuan curiously asked. Captain Han, do you know Li Yunlong? Unexpectedly, Captain Han doesn't even know Li Yunlong. In theory, it shouldn't be. It's just a group leader. There's no reason not to recognize it. Is it that the independent group has not yet been established? Zhang Yuan reluctantly asked about the situation of the independent group again. This independent group does have it, but the leader's surname is Wang. This made Zhang Yuan a bit confused. Why is the famous Li Yunlong gone? Zhang Yuan was busy watching TV and had no idea that Li Yunlong himself was a fictional character. The original form is the current leader of the independent regiment, Wang. However, at this moment, Zhang Yuan is still in a confused circle. I thought it was a parallel world that caused his beloved Captain Li to disappear. Captain Han's voice interrupted his wild thoughts. Is this Li Yunlong your relative? As long as someone is in the independent group, I can definitely help you find them. Zhang Yuan is not sure if the person is actually there. I can only thank you along the way. After chatting, Captain Han finally revealed the purpose of his trip. I just hope to hand over his reloading bullet technology to my rabbit's repair shop for use. This statement surprised Zhang Yuan. There shouldn't be patent protection in this era, right? After all, it's a war, isn't it all about imitating what's good when you see it? Unless it cannot be replicated, but Zhang Yuan has solved all the technical difficulties in reloading bullets, and I never even thought about keeping it confidential. Many people in the production team have a complete set of skills, especially the blacksmith Li. All the tools were made by them together. Mr. Li knows how to make a complete set of equipment. Just pull the person away. It won't take half a month to create another production team, since there is no difficulty at all. So, what is the purpose of Captain Han's statement? 9. The rabbit, come here. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. As Zhang Yuan thought, in this era, there are no patented technologies. If Captain Han can come, thanks to Captain Chow, when he arrived at the army, he was praised vigorously. Someone is about to ask, Captain Chow used to suspect that Zhang Yuan was a spy. How can I praise it? It has to be said that bullets come up. Captain Chow knows a simple truth: it is absolutely impossible for spies to help them make bullets. So now he trusts Zhang Yuan very much. And this bullet was also made under his leadership. After going to the army, his head was almost lifted up to the sky. With such great achievements, shouldn't we boast about it? He doesn't have much to boast about himself. Then we can only boast about Zhang Yuan, praising him so much that there is something in heaven and nothing on earth. This aroused the interest of several leaders of the 771 Regiment. If it weren't for combat missions, the entire leadership team needs to come. Finally, Vice Commander Han was sent to take a look at this three-headed and six-armed Zhang Yuan. That was just a probing remark. Zhang Yuan didn't know the twists and turns inside this place, unable to understand the profound meaning of Captain Han. Just don't think about it anymore, directly say. The purpose of reloading bullets was originally to hit the little devils, so the more people there are, the better, and this is not solely my fault, it is the result of everyone's joint efforts. Seeing that Zhang Yuan did not take pride in himself, Captain Han also nodded in satisfaction. The chairman once said, "We must unite all forces that can be united. Although you are not a party member, we cannot let you work in vain. We still need to give you some compensation. What do you need? We will do our best to help you solve it." Just then, Dog Egg ran in and shouted, "Xiao Zhang, someone outside said your acid-making jar is fine. What will you do next?" The intrusion of Dog Egg made Captain Chow feel a bit embarrassed. After all, this is the village, and Dog Egg is also an acquaintance. Only then can we run in. Vice Commander Han was not angry about someone breaking in. Squatting down and holding onto the hand of the Dog Egg, he asked, "What kind of acid are you talking about? The villagers don't even know what sulfuric acid is. Even Captain Chow has never heard of it, but Captain Han knew it. As soon as I hear the word sour, I immediately gather my energy. I want to ask if it's what I think." Dog Egg said straightforwardly, "I don't know, it was Xiao Zhang who did it. He was so mysterious that he didn't let me go see it, humph." After speaking, Zhang Yuan gave a blank glance to express his dissatisfaction. Captain Han turned his puzzled gaze to Zhang Yuan again. At the same time, there was a faint anticipation in my heart. Zhang Yuan thought for a moment, but he didn't hide anything, saying the answer that Captain Han wanted. When the two words sulfuric acid come out, the captain jumped up. A pair of big hands tightly grasped Zhang Yuan's hand. With a trembling voice, he asked again, "Can you make sulfuric acid?" Captain Chow is a bit confused. What is this sulfuric acid? He has known Han Tuan for a long time, which is not short. A person who has always been calm, hearing this sulfuric acid is even more exciting than seeing bullets. Zhang Yuan understood why he was so excited. After all, there are so many drawbacks to black gunpowder. These military commanders must be quite familiar with it. Zhang Yuan believes that they have discussed how to improve more than once. I guess I got stuck in sulfuric acid like I did before. But after all, we haven't produced the actual product yet. Zhang Yuan dare not guarantee the ticket. I have seen a sulfuric acid production line before, and I also wanted to try drawing a gourd like gourd. I am not a chemistry student, so I dare not guarantee whether it will be successful or not. Upon hearing this, Captain Han felt much more at ease. At least Zhang Yuan has seen it before. I don't care if I've seen this before or if I've glanced at it, I have carefully studied it. Anyway, it's better than those who smear it with two eyes. So he proposed to go and see the scene. Zhang Yuanshuang quickly agreed. A few people convoluted and came to the valley, seeing the stove built on the ground, and those 4 large water tanks glued together, and there are neatly arranged pipes on the ground. The team leader and captain both laughed, although the two of them don't even understand what these things are for. But although the on-site equipment is rudimentary, but everything is well organized, there is a beauty of order that makes people look at it. Captain Han stepped forward to touch this end. That, with a curious expression on his face, Captain Chow's expression was similar. Zhang Yuan brought the two of them to the boiling furnace. Start introducing. Put sulfur or iron sulfide in this furnace to burn, and the gas produced will pass through this tube. There will be some saltpeter inside, and then. Briefly introduced the production process, Zhang Yuan said again. The theory should be fine, but now there is a lack of materials to verify it. Captain Han nodded and said, it's hard to find sulfur, but we don't lack pyrite and saltpeter. I'll have someone bring them right away. Do you need anything else? Zhang Yuan thought for a moment before saying, is there anyone who understands chemistry? After speaking, he awkwardly scratched his head. I am a mechanical student, and I have seen the process of sulfuric acid production by following the teacher's instructions. If there is someone who understands chemistry, they can also help us see if this is feasible. Upon hearing this, Captain Han was surprised and couldn't close his mouth. Is repairing a machine visible? Is this really feasible? I was full of confidence just now, but now I am starting to feel uneasy. So I immediately arranged for the security guards to go back and notify the team leader, ask the team leader to go to the headquarters to ask for someone, regardless of whether Zhang Yuan's equipment is feasible or not. At least it was made according to someone else's factory. Even if it doesn't work, it's still good to give some inspiration to experts. While waiting for the experts, Zhang Yuan asked again if there were any materials he wanted. Upon hearing this, Captain Han took out the note he had written. As he looked at it curiously, he asked. I know what measuring tools, machine tools, and metals are used for, but what's the use of oil drums and rails? Zhang Yuan was stunned for a moment when asked. Then I remembered, the heartless cannon seems to have only emerged in the middle and later stages of the Liberation War. As for the production of guns on railway tracks, I don't know when it first started, but large-scale applications seem to have only begun in 1939. No wonder Captain Han doesn't know. Zhang Yuan did not directly mention the purpose, thinking of giving them a surprise when the time comes. I found a reason to deceive them, but instead, he asked if there was anything he wanted. The measuring tools only have calipers, not others. Various metals are now very scarce, especially copper and zinc, which are also rare. For iron, only white iron is available. After saying these things, Captain Han hesitated for a while before finally saying. The current machine tools are very precious and need to be consulted with superiors. However, there is no electricity in Shangzhuang village. Even if you have a machine tool, you cannot use it. 10. Chemical experts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The issue of electricity was overlooked by Zhang Yuan. Subconsciously, he always thought there was a complete set of facilities like in 2023 here. After all, decades of habits cannot be changed in a short period of time. However, electricity is indeed the lifeblood of industrial development. Without electricity, many things cannot be used, but he doesn't know how to generate electricity either. We can't learn from scratch anymore. Let's start from scratch. That's a bit too much work. Zhang Yuan doesn't have much to worry about in terms of machine tools. He has been dealing with various machine tools for half his life, whether it's hand-cranked, regular, or CNC, he is quite familiar with them all, especially some classic machine tools from the 1950s and 1960s. When I was in school, I had to break down and learn one by one. He is most familiar with Huaxia's first independently developed lathe in 1955 C620.1 ordinary lathe. Don't be fooled by its ordinary name, but its face is not small. The third set of 2 Yuan RMB is printed on this machine tool. At that time, the accuracy of this lathe also reached the world level. After mass production, there was a long-term shortage of supply and demand, and at one point, it was even exported to foreign countries. It is not an exaggeration to call it the mother machine of Chinese industry. When Zhang Yuan went to school, he didn't eat less of its bitterness, because it is classic enough. Schools use it as a teaching aid in class. Dismantling and assembling, assembling and disassembling, assembling and disassembling again, assembling and disassembling again, causing Zhang Yuan to feel nauseous when he saw it after graduation. I really know where each part is located with my eyes closed. Unfortunately, it was created without electricity. However, some hydraulic or animal-powered machine tools can be built to make use of them. However, Zhang Yuan is confident that even if it is a simple machine tool he has built himself, the accuracy will not be inferior to current machine tools. At most, the efficiency is lower. Zhang Yuan looked at Captain Han and said, "I'll solve the problem with the machine tool myself. I just hope the team leader can help me solve the various materials. Let's start with some iron, and I can also make some tools." Regarding the materials, Captain Han was not stingy and readily said, "There are quite a few railway tracks, which used to be buried or submerged in water. Since you need them, I'll get them all for you. The rest will take some time." Having ensured the supply of railway tracks, Zhang Yuan felt at ease. With the materials, he can do a lot of things. Next, he learned a lot from Captain Han. Because he was previously suspected of being a spy, no one introduced him to the situation at all. After producing the reloaded bullets, the villagers began to trust him, but he kept busy with people outside the village for several days. No one had the opportunity to introduce him either. "I just caught a big squad leader this time." He finally understood the basic situation at present, and the general equipment situation of our army now. Now the Japanese troops from North and Central China have converged. We are engaged in a fierce battle with the Bald troops centered around Shuzhou. This is the Battle of Shuzhou. Zhang Yuan also learned through video that Shuzhou was lost in May. In June, Kaifeng was occupied again. October should be the Battle of Wuhan, and after this battle, the War of Resistance against Japan entered a strategic stalemate stage. Then came the winter sweeping of the base areas by the Japanese. But my rabbit's equipment is very poor. Only 4 or 5 people in the army can have one gun now. The average number of bullets per person is only 4. Even heavy weapons can be considered light and heavy machine guns. It's still too little. Zhang Yuan, who understood the situation, couldn't help feeling nervous. He admitted that he was afraid of going to the battlefield. His battlefield should be in the production position, so for the sake of my own safety, in the remaining 6 months, he must craft more weapons and ammunition. Let the soldiers beat the little devils better. There are still many problems that need to be solved. While he was calculating which equipment he needed, the chemistry expert has finally arrived. A total of 4 people came. The leader is in his 40s, wearing glasses and exuding a scholarly demeanor. There are 3 people left, 2 men and 1 woman, all of whom are not very old. The visitors didn't greet each other and headed straight for the cylinder tower. After careful study before and after, patted his head and said, "Why didn't I think of it? Why didn't I think of it?" Seeing the few people following behind, this is just an apologetic smile. "Sorry, I'm too excited to see these emotions. Hello, my name is Zhang Fankue and I'm a chemistry teacher. All 3 of them are my students." After speaking, he looked at the young Zhang Yuan and continued. "Are you Zhang Yuan? This device was invented by you." In terms of human relationships and worldly wisdom, this straight man from science can be considered like Zhang Yuan. However, none of Captain Han and others cared. Zhang Yuan doesn't mind anymore. His favorite thing is this kind of straightforwardness. However, the necessary humility is still needed. I also accidentally discovered that the water tank has good corrosion resistance. I imitated the lead chamber method and blindly pounded it, but I'm not sure if it works. You're an expert, let's take a look. Zhang Fankue sincerely praised. Not only are you erudite, but you can also apply what you have learned. Combining it with reality is truly admirable. The two didn't chat much either. Quickly, the topic entered the professional field. Apart from 3 students taking careful notes, everyone else is listening to the heavenly book. Zhang Yuan also has a partial understanding of chemistry. Most of them have recently come through video editing. Quickly defeated, I dare not continue to communicate anymore. Hurry up and wink at Captain Han. Captain Han couldn't listen any longer. Professor Zhang, this equipment can indeed produce sulfuric acid, right? He interrupted hastily. Zhang Fankue nodded very seriously. Captain Han suppressed his excitement and continued to ask. I don't know when the finished product will be available and how much will be produced. I'm not sure yet. Let's transport the raw materials first. After all, sulfuric acid production is a very dangerous job, and we still need to give it a try to find out. After some thought, he added. If everything goes smoothly, this equipment can produce hundreds of kilograms per month without any problems. This yield has disappointed several people. Zhang Fankue looked at the disappointed expressions on the faces of several people. I couldn't help but feel happy. What's wrong? It's still too little. Captain Chow has also been listening for a long time, although he still doesn't understand what sulfuric acid is. He knows it can make smokeless explosives. Its power is much greater than black gunpowder. Of course, the more I hope, the better. I couldn't help but mutter, what's enough of only 100 or 10 kilograms? This is Zhang Yuan's explanation. This is a set of experimental equipment. If it runs smoothly, we can expand our production capacity and promote it to every base area for production. Upon hearing his explanation, Captain Han and Captain Chow finally smiled.